I know it looks like I'm standing on a typical city street with houses and road behind me, and I am. I'm in the middle of downtown Petersburg, Virginia. But I'm also standing on a farm. More and more these days, urban farming is popping up. It's increasingly contributing to what we eat, and it's happening right under our noses. Come on, let me take you where the food comes from. Dr. Leonard Gathinji, you've got a fascinating job. You're urban agricultural specialist at Virginia State University. And when we say urban agriculture, I think there are a lot of people who look around and go, there's urban agriculture?
I think, first of all, my background is in agronomy and soil, studying about the plant system and the soil in order to enhance agriculture. But then I became interested because of this topic of food security. And realizing that a lot of people are living in the city. And over time, more and more people are actually going to be living in the city. Then you start thinking about who is going to feed these people. Of course, food can come from rural area, but there are negative consequences of food miles.
You got the transportation cost, you have the environmental impact.
Absolutely.
You have the labor availability in rural America versus labor availability in urban America.
Absolutely.
To consider. These are all factors. At one time, that system really comes from a time of abundance, a time of plenty, a time of excess.
Yeah, and besides, if you have more fresh food, if you're growing them in your backyard or they are coming within your neighborhood, you don't have to worry about the freshness, they are more nutritious, there are all those benefits of growing in urban areas. Zero food miles when they come from your backyard, they can come from your rooftop, or backyard, side yard, on the patio. So that is the advantage of promoting urban ag systems. At Virginia State University Cooperative Extension Department, we have a Sustainable Urban Ag Certificate Program. It's a 12-week program that we bring participants on Saturdays. They go for 12 straight Saturdays. They learn about urban agriculture, not just in the classroom setup, but they come and experience the hands-on experiential learning.
Now, Dr. Gathinji, there was a time when everybody did grow food in their backyards, and we call those the bad old days now because it's hard, it's difficult. What we have now that we didn't have in those previous eras is the benefit of technology.
Right, and every time technology can be utilized, even thinking about the raised bed gardens. You think about before, people are just growing in ground, and then there are all those problems that you encounter when you're trying to grow
in the dirt.
Right. The soil in urban areas may be compacted, it may be polluted, it may not be fertile. But when you invest in a raised bed garden, you can bring the soil or planting media that is rich in nutrients, that has the best physical and chemical properties, so you can grow more.
How quickly has this advanced?
I think I have seen it growing quite rapidly, especially now coming from outdoors to indoors. And indoors doesn't mean that you have to have a greenhouse. You can have like a high tunnel, like what Mr. Cherry has. You can see the high tunnels around here. So technology is changing, and now from hooper houses, now you have indoor spaces. You can have an abandoned building converted to an indoor farm. You can invest in hydroponic and aquaponic systems, which allow you to grow 24/7, day and night.
We've heard that as much as somewhere between 5 to 7% of Virginia's food supply is now grown in indoor and urban environments. So it's already having an impact, a measurable impact, but something tells me that may just be the tip of the iceberg.
Yes, and if you remember how so many countries were exposed during the time of COVID when the food supply chain were disrupted.
You mean the first time that everybody ever heard of the word supply chain?
Right.
And then went to the supermarket and said, why is there no bread? Why are there no vegetables?
Right.
Yeah.
And we got a lot of calls. That time so many calls came around. People wanted to start their own food production system, whether it's in your backyard, front yard. So we want people to be resilient, knowing that you can grow, you don't have to grow everything. Start small, but if you can replace part of your food bill, even if it's 10%, 20%, you're doing good. You're better than somebody who is not caring at all.
Tyrone Cherry, you are an alumni of Virginia State University.
Yes, sir.
And you are one of the star students of this program. You're a rock star over there. We've gone to a lot of colleges and universities, and usually when we get there, they're kind of like, oh, did you know Joe Jones played football here before he went on to the NFL for a great career? Or did you know we have the greatest basketball player in? That's how they talk about Tyrone Cherry at VSU. You're their rock star. They're bringing it out. Let's talk about your background, your history, your past.
Originally from Newport News, Virginia. That's where I was born, but I'm a military brat. So I returned to Virginia from Charlotte to attend Virginia State University. So I was a student there at Virginia State University. I was Mr. Virginia State University. I graduated from there and I taught. I've been an educator for 20 plus years. I've taught everything from kindergarten to being a principal. So I went around Boston, Omaha, Nebraska, Atlanta, Georgia, Charlotte, North Carolina. I taught once I left Virginia State. And I moved back from Boston, teaching in Boston. I moved back to Hopewell, Virginia to teach. I ended up buying a home in Petersburg, and that's what leads me to where I am.
You looked out your back window and said, maybe I can start a farm there.
I went to a conference in California, and we had a project where we had to develop our ideal community.
Right.
And the other groups were all putting in school gardens, and I'm an educator. So I had never heard of a school garden. So I'm like, what in the world? I've been at all these schools, never seen a school garden. What is this you speak of? So the next day, the instructor puts up a video of Ron Finley, the gangster gardener. He does his TED Talk, and he opens up with, I'm from South Central Los Angeles, where the drive-through is killing more people than the drive-by.
Amen.
And when he said that, I'm like, okay, I know South Central Los Angeles, right? That's Menace to Society, Boys in the Hood. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, why is that resonating with me? And I live in Petersburg, Virginia. So I dive into this, into this rabbit hole of food deserts, right? And I realized that Petersburg is a food desert.
And a lot of people know what a food desert is, but a lot of people don't. A lot of urban areas are not served by traditional grocery stores and by retail chains. Same thing happens in rural America. We often forget. We think, well, gosh, rural Americans live where the food comes from. Well, how would they have any trouble? Well, what if where you live, all the farming is dedicated to onions or broccoli or whatever is best suited for that area? Well, there might not be a super center in your neighborhood where you can go have access to fresh and nutritious food. The dollar store might be where you go shop. So it's very reflective of an urban environment, but a food desert is simply where there's a concentrated population that does not have consistent guaranteed access to fresh, healthy food.
What are we gonna do about this? So, cool, we're gonna grow. You know what I mean? We're gonna sow and grow. So I didn't have any land besides my home, so we took my front yard, we turned it into a community garden. My front yard went from a lawn to 25 raised garden beds, and we named it the Petersburg Oasis Community Garden. And we were intentional about that name. It was unapologetically Petersburg. It was an oasis because we live in a so-called food desert, right? And then it was a community space, so a community garden. It's been a long journey. We've been about 10, 11 years in this. So it started off in the front yard, and now we're here on a 5-acre community farm, but there's been a lot in between that. I was a farm assistant on this same land. I was granted, the owner prior to that, I was granted a piece of this land to turn into a space, but that didn't work out. We started school gardens that didn't survive because there was no management of the gardens. We've started community gardens that didn't make it because the management of the apartment complex took it back. So there's been a lot of bumps, on the way, but what I've learned is not only how to survive in the so-called food desert by growing food, but I've learned how to thrive now in this food desert by starting our own businesses, by doing social entrepreneurship. So where there wasn't a way, we made a way. Yeah. The space that we're on is the Petersburg Oasis Youth Farm. This is designed and dedicated to the youth, the next generation of growers in Petersburg. So it's up to them. We built the canvas for them. It's up to them, and we showed them the colors. It's up to them, you know, to figure out what they want to put on there.
Can we take a look around and see what
Please,
you're doing?
please.
Let's go.
Yeah,
Lead
yeah.
the way.
Yeah, come on.
Okay.
So this is the Mama Cherry reading garden. That is my mother, Deirdre Janine Cherry. She passed away about 10 years ago now. And when she passed away, we had just started that community garden in my front yard.
Yeah.
And she raised 4 boys here, well, here in America is what I'm saying. She raised 4 melanated men here in America. And her main thing with us was literacy.
Right.
Yeah, knowing how to read. So in honor of her and her life, when she transitioned, I put up a little free library in that community garden. So fast forward, you know, almost 10 years later, we got this community farm, this youth farm.
Right.
We picked that up out the community garden and we set it here in the farm. And the idea is to remind the community that we're not just trying to teach you how to sow and grow food to feed your body, but we want to teach you how to feed your mind and your soul too.
But tell us about this part of the farm and what it does and what it represents.
This portion of the farm is about that reverence for life, right? These animals could be used for meat, but that's not what we have them
Right.
for. We have them to add back to the land, their manure. We let the chickens till the ground. We let the ducks come and flatten it out. So we talk to the youth here about having a reverence for life because everything has a role
Sure.
when it comes to life. From the bees pollinating our fruits and vegetables, to the rabbits being able to use their pellets to grow those fruits and vegetables. The one rule here on the youth farm is to treat everything the way you want to be treated. So then you walk in and you say, okay, I'm not gonna chase that chicken because I don't want to be chased. I'm not gonna just go pick that chicken up because I don't want somebody picking me up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it just puts you into that frame of mind of we are all connected. That separation is an illusion. You know, we're all breathing, we're all bleeding, therefore we should look out for each other.
You know, we think about the happy life on the farm, and there is a lot of happiness and joy on a farm, but it's also the circle of life, and things can change on a dime. And we just witnessed it ourselves when we got here. These ducks, these young ducks, were swimming happily in a pond. Less than 10 minutes later, we look up and one of them is floating, and there's a problem with the ducks. I guess, Tyrone, did they get too cold? Was it, these are young ducklings.
And that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking they got too cold in that water.
And by the time they realized it, they didn't have the strength to get out of the water. So in that moment, you went from farmer to veterinarian.
Yeah.
And it's been kind of a frantic, hectic half hour here as we've tried to resuscitate, and now we've actually moved into one of the greenhouses for warmth. And these little fellas seem to be coming back pretty good, none the worse for wear, but you actually lost 2.
So when we have the youth here, like you asked earlier about the ducks and the chickens and the rabbits, and those are not for meat, right? They all are part of our farm family. They
Right.
all have names. These ducks here were just living in my sunroom at the house just a month ago. They just got transferred over to the farm, and my children been raising them for the last 2 months. So it's here we talk about the reverence of life.
Yeah.
You know, maybe the plants or the animals. So moments like this turn into an appreciation for life, you know, just like going to a funeral. You know, death helps us appreciate life.
It's a very hard lesson to learn, but it's a very critical
It's necessary.
lesson to learn.
Yep, it's necessary. Yep.
Now, Tyrone, these are the raised beds. These are, you're growing, I see cabbage over here. I think there's some basil behind me here. A lot of different things. This is the technology that's talking about, this is something people can do in their own backyard.
Yeah, so this entire space is an example of how I grew into urban agriculture. So I started in my front yard with raised garden beds like this. And I learned the soil, I learned the life in the soil, I learned how to grow and sow and harvest. Then I grew outside that box and into the row gardenings and the market gardening and all that. But this is an example for the community. You know, maybe you don't have enough space to do 20-foot rows. That's cool. Can we put a 4x4?
Do a little
bed?
box.
Exactly. Do some square foot gardening in your backyard or front yard. And we even have grow bags. Usually in the summer and the spring, we'll have grow bags around this entire area. So there's no excuse not to sow and grow.
Tyrone, I would say this is a special part of this farm, but I think every part of this farm has purpose built into it. And I'm starting to get an idea that that was your goal and that was your design, was to build purpose into every stop and every station. This looks like, as we would say, where the rubber meets the road. This is where the food that's grown is served. This is the community kitchen. Who does this honor?
Papa Graves Community Kitchen.
Papa Graves Community
Yep.
Kitchen.
Papa Graves is the father of my best friend. He was, in the last few years of his life, he got his degree in culinary arts.
Right.
And his intention was to have a mobile food truck that he was able to provide healthy, delicious food for free to people in need. So, you know, because he didn't get to see that come to fruition in the physical, in honor of his life and a way for me to help my best friend grieve through the loss of his father, we erected this in his honor, and we give out now 200 pounds of locally grown produce every week.
This mobile food pantry that takes food into areas. You're in a part of Petersburg that, like so many cities, so many urban environments, there's not always access to fresh, healthy food. So you and many others that we have met across this nation are literally taking it to the people. Tell us about the mission of this food pantry, the mobile food pantry.
So the Plug Mobile Farm Stand is just that. It's a mobile farm stand. It's where we connect the community with the locally grown produce. And it's a direct response to the fact that we only have one commercial grocery store in this city. And just where we are now, that's a good 10, maybe 12 miles away.
Wow.
It's probably gonna take you about an hour or so to ride the bus to get there. And that's not counting you having to carry your bags back on that bus.
There's something we keep seeing here and something we keep saying, and it's right here on your shirt, the plug. And it's P.L.U.G. Fill in the gaps for me. What is the plug other than just a cool name for this farm and this operation?
It's the Petersburg League of Urban Growers. So it's the idea that here in Petersburg, if we come together as a league and we're focused on having a mission of growing in this urban setting, the potential, you know, there's a cornucopia of potential.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Dr. Robert Corley, Dean of the College of Agriculture at VSU, we've seen some really eye-opening work going on with urban agriculture here, and it's very important to keep in mind. This is something we get to see as we travel, and we can kind of read between the cracks in the sidewalk, literally in the city, and see what's going on and what's growing there. But this is an effort that extends far beyond Virginia State University.
Well, Chip, you hit it right on the head. You generally think of rural when you think of agriculture. Urban agriculture has the potential now to be one of the fastest growing areas. And we're so excited here at Virginia State University to be leading the effort. Through our Small Farm Outreach program, it's a part of our extension program. Small Farm Outreach is headed by Mr. William Crutchfield. We are leading the National Urban Ag Initiative.
Oh, wow.
This is a USDA-funded award, and it allows us now to work with USDA as a partner, also with Cornell University, and Virginia Tech as a partner, to create recommendations to USDA that can impact urban farming.
Wow. So the work that you're doing here will then be, and that's being done at those other institutions as well, will be extrapolated. As the kids would say, they're gonna blow it up.
There we go. And see, we already have to think about the working model. USDA for years has worked with rural farmers.
Sure.
Now we're here to say, how do we transpose some of those great fundamental programs to support urban farming? And the question some ask is, why urban farming? Well, when you look at almost like a heat map, and you look at food insecurity in areas, a lot of things move out of urban environments into the suburbs. And sometimes you've had challenges with transportation. And so now you end up with these areas where people have very, very low access to high quality foods, which translates to poor quality health. And so in order for us to try to fix that, to help food systems, we want to make recommendations to USDA. So this is a 27 city across the nation, that means 27 states involved, where we are meeting with urban farmers, gathering, learning from them. We have USDA and other federal agencies present, and collectively we're putting our heads together to see what are the best levels of support and means to deliver those levels of support that are needed to promote urban farming.
Small steps change the world.
There we go. one step at a time.
So Tyrone, this looks like part of the same farm, but also it don't look like part of the same farm. So is there a difference here? Is this all a continuum, or what's going on here?
Yeah, so different but the same.
Okay.
So this is the incubator side of the farm. This community farm serves as an incubator for BIPOC growers. That's Black, Indigenous, people of color who want to get into farming or already in farming.
So this is a business incubator.
Yeah, it is.
So this is not one big plot. You've got different business people out here actually starting their own farming ventures.
Yeah. So our goal is to get you started here. And then when you outgrow this 1/4 acre of a space, we have a bigger plot for you to go and get. So if say you want to start doing horses or goats, right? You can outgrow this 1/4 acre and grow into a larger space.
And then there's a space for another entrepreneur to come in and begin. So one farmer becomes 4 farmers, becomes 8 farmers, becomes 16 farmers. That's kind of how it grows out there, isn't it?
That's how it grows, yes sir. And that's why we have the youth farm, in hopes that the youth will get engaged at the youth farm and then want to cross the road and come over and join the incubator farm.
It's really an inspirational thing to stand on a spot like this and to hear stories like this. But here's the reality. No matter what city you're in, something similar is happening there, out here, where the food comes from.